All right, welcome to the first episode of the Ramen podcast. It's the first, only first. So you'll never get another chance at watching the first one. Welcome. This podcast is going to be hosted every 2 weeks by Aaron and myself, and we'll have guests every week. This week our guest is Matt Dillahunty. If you're here, I'm sure you know who he is. Skeptic, blogger, atheist extraordinaire. Today we're going to be explaining a little bit about the podcast in general and what we're doing it for, why we're doing it, a little bit of information about how you can join in and ask us questions, and then we're going to be discussing with Matt and Aaron the idea of, do believers believe and are they sincere about their beliefs? Both of these gentlemen take different sides of that, and we'll be talking about it. So a little housekeeping first. The Ramen podcast, the website's going to be www.thera-men.com. You can go there right now. All of Aaron's upcoming projects are going to be on there. You'll be able to get links to all the places where you can participate, where you can help and be a part of it. This is all being funded through Aaron's Patreon account, which is patreon.com/AronRa. You can chip in $1, you can chip in $5, $10, and Aaron will tell you in a moment about where those funds are going. So I'll flip it over to Aaron real quick. If you have any questions, you can tweet us at the Ramen podcast, and I'll be watching the Twitter feed for any questions. Aaron, why don't you tell us what inspired you to start the Patreon and what's next?
Well, there was a number of things I wanted to do, but when you're going out of pocket I was losing money on all these trips that I was doing, and all the having to work overtime actually at the office was obviously impinging on my ability to do anything once I got back home. So I figured any additional support would lend additional ability to produce content, and it was actually largely my wife's idea. Some of the projects that she came up with, two very good ideas, were that we would start doing classroom supplement materials for actual use in science classrooms from 6th grade through AP science classes in high school, and these are focused on the next generation science standards. We have the first of those episodes should be available first thing in the morning. We're almost done with that one. Very excited about it. I got a letter from somebody in England who was telling me that he's been showing my videos in his classroom for the last 4 years, which is funny because I wasn't adhering to any standardized or any national standards at that time. I certainly wasn't endeavoring to make anything classroom appropriate, and we are for this. Matter of fact, the videos that we're doing for classroom supplements are not going on my own channel, although there will be a mirror there for a preview. Primarily, we're putting them on another channel called Living Science, and I'll provide the links for that below, and certainly I'll provide references for that once the videos come online. A secondary project that my wife came up with, which I was really excited about. So I'm not just doing videos like I used to. I am doing that. I'm going to be doing the videos like I used to, but it's not just that. It's actual classroom supplements that I'm really excited about. But then she also got us on a much bigger project, and that is the initiation of the Phylogeny Explorer project, and this is huge.
Are you sure you're on air?
I'm on air, yes. Okay. Okay, we're getting comments that it's not streaming. Do we have any way of confirming this?
Yeah, it takes a little time to get caught up. It actually just started. So for the people that are watching it right now, we started exactly at 10. We probably should have started a few minutes early, but I know that it's streaming now. We're about 4 minutes ahead. So what we're talking about is not showing up yet. So it's working fine.
Sorry about the interruption. It does say live in his window, so I think you are on air.
Okay.
We are.
Okay.
It's running.
All right, anyway, she came up with the idea to do the Phylogeny Explorer project, and I didn't think that so grand a project could actually become real, but I was committed to do it anyway. And I'm very excited when I posted out on Facebook that, you know, hey, we're going to have to do this. We've met that goal. I'm going to fulfill that promise one way or another. And I need a web designer to get me started. And within minutes, there was a Facebook group dedicated to planning the production and the operation of that site by I don't know, a dozen or so different, many of whom with impressive experience. And so this is actually happening. It's going to be months before there's anything to present, because of course we don't want to show anything until it is already impressive. And that's going to be some time. And then it's going to be a continuing thing. Once it goes online, it's going to continue to be updated. What we're doing is the entire virtual phylogenetic tree of life. It has been attempted a couple of times before. However, the best endeavor yet tried, yet available, is the Arizona Tree of Life project, and that ran out of funding and was disbanded in 2000 before they completed the Human Genome Project. So you can imagine all the corrections that are needed on that site, and it remains unchanged after all these years as still being the best reference that we've got for this. So what we're shooting for is for something that will be a phylogenetics hub that'll be referenced by teachers, by students, and by scientists themselves. We want them to be contributing in each of these fields. And certainly, wherever there are corrections necessary, we're going to be going by the peer-reviewed documentation for the best that we've got. But these are going to still have to be updated. As new genomes are confirmed, there are subtle changes needing to be made, and we're going to be on top of that. And I'm really excited about the graphic representation and the fact that it's going to exist at all. I'm absolutely thrilled with. It's going to be a lot of work, but I think we've managed how that's going to be done. So I want to thank everybody for making that possible. This has been that's been a long time dream of mine, and a big one.
Yeah, when I was asked to help out, all I could think of was I don't really know much about the kind of things that Aaron talks about. I'm in awe, like the rest of us that are watching, when you're talking to us about those kind of things. I just hope I can lend a voice to the podcast and help with the guests and stuff like that. So that's why I'm here. Again, you guys can tweet your questions in to @TheRamen or use the hashtag TheRamen or TheRamen if you like. So yeah, that's hopefully we can keep that one under wraps. I tested out a few first, and that one seems to not really be used, so we may be able to claim that as our own. So the subject today, with our guest Matt Dillahunty, is going to be: do the religious people of the world, do they in general feel sincere about their beliefs? Do they really believe what they're saying most of the time, and why? So we'll let you start first, Matt. What's your take on that question?
Hold on, before he speaks, I gotta say, you didn't give the man a proper introduction. You know, for the last 10 years, he's been the primary host of the Atheist Experience TV show, and former president of the atheist community of Austin. It's Matt Dillahunty.
Yeah. There we go. Sorry, Matt. I thought no introduction needed for the most part.
Well, Aaron evidently thinks a little bit less of me and a little bit more at the same time. Yeah. So I don't even know how strongly we disagree on this. It may be a matter of definitions, but my original objection wasn't quite as broad as what you guys are talking about. Are believers sincere? Well, I certainly can't speak for everyone, but when I was a believer, I was sincere. I believed what I believed, and I professed what I believed. Now, did I believe every aspect of everything? Perhaps not. Was I always accurately representing what I believed when I talked to people? I'm not sure. In some cases, there's this mesh of beliefs, and one belief may take primacy. It may be the case that while I believe in God, I may also believe that it's a good idea for me to object to something that I don't understand because this furthers my belief in God. But I'm sincere in that belief. When we originally talked about this, it was about people like Ray Comfort, where Aaron seems to be happy and comfortable saying that he's a liar. Well, I agree. Ray has been caught lying or caught talking out of both sides of his mouth on occasion. But when it comes to, for example, the fact that he says that he doesn't believe evolution and that he thinks it's a fairy tale for adults, I'm happy to take him at his word, because I think there's a difference between saying you're wrong and you're lying. And for me, the difference is intent. Honestly representing what you believe, even if it's wrong, even if you should realize that it's wrong, even if people have told you countless times that it's wrong, even if any reasonable person would agree that it's wrong, yet you still believe that it's true, at some point you can get to where any reasonable person should accept this, but all that demonstrates is that you're probably talking to someone who's unreasonable. I don't know how you can demonstrate what's going on in their head and that they're dishonest. I may suspect that they're lying, but unless they go so far as to say, I believe this, and then act in a way that would indicate that they actually don't believe it, so that their beliefs and their actions are in conflict, or they simultaneously, or in different situations, say, I believe this, and say, I don't believe this, where you've got a clear contradiction, then I don't have evidence of intentional deception. And, you know, when David Hume was talking about people reporting, you know, the risen Christ, etc., he said he has to ask himself, you know, I have to consider whether it's more likely that they are deceived or intending to deceive than that the proposition is true. And so there's three possibilities there. The proposition is true and they're fairly representing it, or it's not true and they are either deceived or deceiving. And I don't know how to tell the difference between the two. Because even if I'm personally convinced that they're lying, even if I'm virtually certain that they're lying, it's almost always a mistake to accuse them of lying. Because now you've adopted a burden of proof that you may not be able to demonstrate. Shouldn't it be enough to simply say that they're wrong and show the facts that they're wrong? Shouldn't it be enough to say that they're unreasonable, that they are refusing to accept evidence? In the debate with Cy, he called me a liar. I got him to acknowledge that that's exactly what he was doing. Because Cy is convinced that I know that God exists. Everybody. He's convinced everybody knows God exists. And my point was, okay, you think everybody knows God exists. I'm not aware of this. And you're basically claiming that you know what's going on in my head better than I do. So are you saying that I'm lying? And Cy said yes. And at that point, well, actually, long before that point, it was no longer worth responding to him. But at that point, it was definitely not worth responding to him because I know that he's wrong about this. I know what I'm aware of. I know what I believe, and I know what I don't believe. And to me, it's kind of like going up to someone who's gay and saying, I know you're really straight. As if, you know, you got into their head. You're just faking it. You're just putting it, you know, putting on airs. You want, I don't know, you want to be persecuted like the gays. So not being able to get into somebody's head, I can't really know that they're lying. And I think it's a mistake generally to claim that they are unless you have really good evidence of a specific lie. When we speak in generalities about believers are lying about what they believe, there are aspects of lies. There are aspects of the protective mechanism that they build around them that could be viewed as lying, but just to say that they are simply lying about what they believe, I don't know how you can justify that.
Well, I don't want to be unfairly misrepresented, and not that you would ever do that intentionally, but I'm not saying that all of these people are necessarily lying. I'm questioning the sincerity of their belief, and you alluded to that when you mentioned something about the structure that they build around their mind. The first times that I started arguing with apologists, they started explaining to me what they called the armor of God and the helmet of truth or whatever, all this Bible man nonsense that they came up with. But all that meant, by their description, was steeling your mind against reason, against being convinced not to believe. You had to believe. That's the ultimate priority. And then however you can rationalize or justify that was secondary. And it was also a priority that they not be put in a position where they had to question those beliefs. So you and I were both in a movie wherein the producer of this film described his own position as one of delusion, wherein all the evidence points to A, and he's going to believe B. And I don't know, how do you classify that? Is that being unreasonable? What is that? When you know that somebody else has got the goods on an argument, and then what are the defenses that they come up with? Well, if my position is religious, then yours is religious too. Right? There's always equivocation, there's always projection, or they start rationalizing. Well, you can't prove everything that you know. So there's, you know, if there's something questionable in your opponent's position, that means that it's okay if everything is questionable in your own position. And this is, again, it's an imbalance. But the ultimate test for me was when people want to challenge me on, theology or whatever, if they want to debate religion with me, and I say that I can prove certain aspects of what I say. When I say something, there's demonstrability to it, whereas in the religious perspective, it's just an assertion. And they often tell me that I can't prove evolutionism. And I said, well, yeah, I actually can. We drop the ism off of it, and then I can do that. And then I set up a situation where if they'll just follow through the question so that I can reason with them, I know that the first response is going to be to simply close their mind to anything I say. Any evidence I present, they'll simply say, that doesn't prove anything, and they don't even have to know what the evidence is to dismiss it. They don't even have to have actually heard it. They could put their hands over their ears, and then when they see my lips stop moving, they could then hand swipe and say, well, that doesn't mean anything. That's just the way that God did it. But when I put them in a situation wherein I offer to prove to their satisfaction, for example, that evolution is a reality, a demonstrable truth, if you would, then I get hesitation. I get outright denials in most cases. The few times that I've actually gotten somebody to take that challenge, there's always a game, and then when they realize that game doesn't work, they flee. And there's only been one notable exception, and that is that not everybody is being completely dishonest in what they believe. I wasn't dishonest in what I believed when I believed it, but then I didn't believe on faith. I believed because I had bought into what all my parents and tutors and teachers and babysitters and everybody had told me was conclusively proven scientific fact, and I had to grow up and started investigating this to realize that it wasn't. When these people find that their beliefs are going to be changed, then you hear the old slogans that, if believing is wrong, I don't want to be right. And well, these may be what the facts are, but I prefer to believe this. Or they tell me that, how could I believe what I believe when they believe something so much happier? Wouldn't you rather believe what I believe? As if it's a choice of ice cream. How can I just choose one day to be like Lindsay Lohan did when she was dating that Jewish girl? She said she was going to change her religion. She was Catholic, and then she's going, not currently, but going to change her religion next month so that she will then be a Jew. So that today, what she believes today, she will next month consider to be a heresy, and what she currently considers to be a non-Christian damnable religion, she will adopt as truth. And this is she plans to do a month from now. This is not a sincere belief. They don't believe what they believe the same way that I believe what I believe. If me and a young Earth creationist both come up to a time machine, we get a TARDIS in front of us, and we are going to set that thing for 10 million years ago, I have a very good idea what I'm going to see. And I suspect that young Earth creationist knows what he's going to see too. And so he starts making excuses, and that's what I'm talking about. They know that what they believe is a matter of pretend. It is literally make-believe, and it has to be, or faith wouldn't be required. And that's my position.
Well, my position is similar to Matt's, where I think that a person could, in some ways, be using lies or using things that they aren't entirely sure are true to them to protect their greater belief system. I mean, like when they're listening to you talk about evolution, and they're like, those things do sound like they're disproving what I'm saying, and you ultimately disprove them, but their base is unshaken because it's somehow protected from their outside. That's not exactly what Matt said, but that's kind of how I think a lot of it goes. Even if they discover something and they start to think that a portion of it is fake or false, they may continue to ratify and fortify those thoughts to protect the underlying basis of their belief system.
So if I can go ahead and address some of the stuff Aaron said, because I don't know how far apart we actually are, or if we are. When you're engaging with believers and the defense mechanisms kick in, this idea of kind of steeling your mind against reason, in some cases that's willful deception. In other cases, it is the way they've been trained so that they're not necessarily conscious of that deception. And this is why I go to intent. You know, that you have to, you know, consciously be aware that you're intending to deceive, as opposed to merely being a victim of a kind of heuristic in your brain. You've got this claim, and we'd like it to follow this pattern of evaluating the evidence and boom, boom, boom. But religion has inserted an extra branch in this heuristic that basically shoots off to the side and says, does this conflict or appear to conflict with the specific tenets that I believe about religion? And if so, then you skip this entire, you know, evidence-based rational conversation, and you just go back to, you know, I believe this. And so he talked about how somebody would say the evidence points to A, but I'm going to believe B. Is that classified as unreasonable? Yes. But is it classified as necessarily lying? I don't know that this person is necessarily able to process. In some cases, it's almost like you're speaking a different language because they have different presuppositions. If you already have as a presupposition the idea that there is a God who created everything, who's magical, who can serve as an explanation for anything, then that's not surprising to me that people would, when faced with the evidence of evolution, would say stuff like, well, that doesn't prove anything, because they have this idea of absolute certainty, and they have this idea of magic. And saying, you know, wouldn't you rather believe, or I prefer to believe this, I agree with Aaron, and I've said it many times, belief is not a choice in any simple sense. And for the people who, I think one of the ways you can tell that you've crossed into the land where the presuppositions and the defense mechanisms are preventing any progress, he pointed out the absurd things that they say, how these things don't make any sense. And as soon as they get to the absurdities, that's when I know that now I'm no longer talking to someone who's considering what I'm saying, evaluating it, and trying to reach a rational conclusion. Instead, they are waiting for their turn to speak, and they already know that their next turn to speak is going to be, well, that doesn't make any difference because God exists, and I believe that, you know, blah, blah, look at the trees. The bit about people changing religion for people they love, I agree with him. I would say that those people don't believe the specific tenets of the religion that either they're leaving or going to in most cases. And that's because most people don't know or understand the specific tenets of the religion they're in. They don't know or understand the Bible. Everybody has, you know, some people know more about this than others, but by and large, people like Lindsay Lohan, I don't expect that she could argue her way out of a paper bag when it comes to religion. And she probably, like most people on the planet, have this God concept that's kind of fungible, that's tied to their core. They just believe this, and hey, you're free to worship God in a whole bunch of different ways. They're not even aware that there's these conflicts. They have some new agey, watered down version of God that they think they can stick into any religious label. They're wrong because they don't know the specifics of the religion. And so, you know, if somebody says, yes, I was a Jew and now I'm a Christian, and they don't give as a reason, because I'm convinced of the truth that Jesus is the Messiah prophesied and is God incarnate and will come. If they don't give that reason, and instead they give the reason of because I married a Christian, you know, then they're I would say that their label doesn't fit, and they're probably lying about the label. Now, as to what they actually believe, I don't know, but this is what I mean. This is what I meant at the beginning about them taking an action that betrays the truth of what they believe. When you have evidence like that, that's great, and I don't have any problem with saying that somebody's lying. But when they come up against a wall where the evidence has kind of beaten them back to the point that all their defenses are gone now, and the last defense mechanism kicks in, which is to just ignore all the rest of that, I don't know that there's anything that qualifies as conscious deception in there. To me, that is a mind that has been damaged. That is a victim of religious thinking that, you know, should be pitied and try to assist. And if they're going to be somebody like Ray Comfort who's going to continue to go out and preach this, then they need to be opposed. Try to assist them as much as you can, and then you oppose them so that they don't do more harm. But I still can't quite get to calling them a liar, because to me that involves kind of conscious intent to deceive. That you know what you're saying is false, and you're intentionally portraying it, saying it as if it's true, in order to deceive other people. And at a minimum, even those people who have doubts and are like trying to portray their or promote Christianity, even those people with doubts still believe that there's some positive benefit to spreading Christianity and encouraging other people to be Christians. We always act in accordance with our beliefs, even if we're not completely aware of what they are.
Okay, so I have argued with people who have this general squishy sort of impression of God. As a matter of fact, doing some research yesterday on the people that worship crystals, I encountered these people that think that crystals have a telepathic ability that are talking to them, and obviously there's not a lot about this in Christianity. However, they will still make references to how this is supported, even by the mention of the healing stones of the Bible, as if citing the Bible lends credence to what they believe, which has nothing to do with the rest of the Scripture at all. And when you argue any finite point with them, to the point where you can actually get something done. I mean, like I posted on my Facebook, one of these people talking about crystals and everything. You can't verify anything that they say at all, because there's no evidence to indicate any of it, but they speak very authoritatively. And then when you do find something that you can actually oppose with data to confirm that that is incorrect, then what I invariably get is, why won't you let me believe what I want to believe? And if you are under the impression that what you believe is not verifiably true, and here I'm bringing data that would change your mind, then why would you respond to tell me that you would rather believe, in effect, this is what they're doing, they're telling me they would rather believe something that probably isn't true. And I've had people tell me, like with the falsifying, the Foundational Falsehood series, I've had people report to me that at the onset of making that series that I was hurting people who believe what they do because they need to. And I've also encountered people that tell me that they're Christian because they believe in the Christian God, and they won't support anything in the Bible. They don't believe, not just that they pick and choose, they don't believe any of the Bible except the bit about that there's a God and He's Jesus, and that's it. And to me, all of that reeks of pretend. It's, when you wish upon a star and wish really, really hard, it's Jiminy Cricket religion. If you listen to this song, When You Wish Upon a Star, it's a parody of what religion actually is. Listen to all those lyrics on there. So this is why I say that religious beliefs are insincere.
And I'll just add one little note, which may kind of clear it up and find some common ground. What you're talking about, completely agree. This moving crystals and voodoo and Santeria and things that morph some ideas with a religion in order to create some new religion. I think the difference is, when they say things like, "Why won't you let me believe what I want to believe?" You're talking to a confused mind that doesn't want to be challenged. But the distinction that I would make is whether there's conscious awareness in this. I think that many believers, especially those who have been challenged and been and kind of put on the spot and been shown the fallacies in what they believe, I think subconsciously they are aware that there are problems with their beliefs, and this is why the defense mechanisms seem to get a little bit more robust and a little bit more absurd. Subconsciously, some part of them is sitting here in conflict, recognizing that there's this state of cognitive dissonance, and holy crap, is it possible that I could believe something that's really wrong? Could I be wrong about all this? And there's another part of them that just won't let it. So my whole thing about lying is that, for me, if I'm going to say that somebody's lying, there needs to be some demonstration that there's conscious intent and not just subconscious awareness or confusion or demonstrated irrationality. And quite frankly, and this will be just as insulting as saying he's lying, I think Ray is far too stupid to be able to consistently pull off what he does and be a liar about it. But
okay, well, I don't grant him either any integrity or intelligence. I see him as being deprived of both. But this is not a bash Ray session. At least I wasn't intending that it be.
Could be if you work harder at it.
For the people that are listening, we're going to try to keep these to 30 minutes. I'm sure Matt and Aaron could go on for another 2 hours about this subject and many other subjects. But what we'd like you to do is these podcasts are going to be every 2 weeks. So the next podcast will be August 7th. You'll be able to find them both on Spreaker and SoundCloud and AronRa's YouTube page in the next day. The Spreaker and SoundCloud links are /TheRamen, no podcast, just The Ramen on Spreaker and SoundCloud, and then AronRa's YouTube page is obviously /AronRa. But we want to have a call to action at the end of every episode. So this week, go to Twitter, use the hashtag #TheRamen, and tell us what you think about the phrase, "Why won't you let me believe what I want to believe?" What does that make you think of? Tell us in 144 characters what that means to you with the hashtag. And next week, at the beginning of the show, we'll read a couple of the best tweets, and we'll say who tweeted them, and so you can kind of be a part of the show with that. So thanks for coming, Matt. Hope everybody enjoyed the show, and we'll see you August 7th. Is the guest still to be undetermined, Aaron? Or are we lined up for the?
We are lined up for our guest, who is attempting to construct, if I understand this correctly, and I'm sure that I don't, he's attempting to construct a hot fusion reactor, and I'm going to let him give the description. What he told me was that he's going to try to create the power grid for the world.
Oh, there you go. That should be a good show. Hopefully we can squeeze that into 30 minutes. We did have a few questions that we didn't get to. We'll try to do better at getting into the questions. We'll answer those questions. Aaron can answer them on Twitter. The few that we've had. We had a couple on there, Aaron, if you want to check them out. Thanks for coming, Matt, and we'll try to have you back on the show soon.
Sure, thanks for having me. I told Aaron there's no way we could do this in 10 minutes, and and just for note, my own Patreon channel is going live tomorrow. It's Atheist Debates, and so I'll have more information, so watch for notes on Twitter and Facebook.
Yep, we'll share that too, Matt. So we're going to turn the broadcast off in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.